Welcome to another edition of Danny's Hot Takes. Today we'll be reviewing Codex Genestealer Cults. Codex Genestealer Cults, of course, brought to us by Games Workshop and brought to you through us. So thanks, GW. We really appreciate it. This is a product review, and we did receive this product for free. Let's talk about this Codex. This Codex is awesome. So we're going to jump past the fluff. It's really great fluff. Check it out. It's got a lot of really great stories about Genestealer cults, the various uprisings, different units, their backgrounds, different cults themselves. So definitely check it out when you have a chance. So we're going to start today by talking about their detachment abilities. So when you make a Genestealer cult's detachment, it's going to get three abilities. It's going to get Genesect, it's going to get Brood Coven, and it's going to get the Brood Brothers abilities. So Genestealer cults, they get a cult creed, and troops units get obsec, just like you would expect. Nothing special there. So Genesect means you can have a maximum of each Genestealer cult's character once per detachment. So if you take multiple detachments, you can potentially have multiple Genestealer cult's characters, but for each detachment you take, you can only have one, so keep that in mind. And for each HQ battlefield role slot that you use to take a Genestealer cult's character, you can take an extra character from Genestealer cults without taking up a slot. So if you take 3 characters in HQs, you get 3 characters that don't take up slots. Whether they're elites, whether they're other HQ choices, your choice. The next ability is Brood Coven, and this is kind of like their hierarchical ability. So if you include a Patriarch, he has to be your Warlord. If you don't include a Patriarch, you have to have a Primus or a Magus as your Warlord. Regardless, you can never give a Warlord trait to a character that doesn't have the HQ battlefield role. So you're not going to get any Warlord traits for anybody else. And then finally, Cult Creed. So this is their chapter tactics that they're going to get. Let's see here. So finally, we have the Brood Brothers rules there. Brood Brothers, they did preview this on GW's site, so I'm not going to go over that today. Check out their article on that. But it allows you to take a guard detachment and make them special. So cults. So each cult is going to have a cult creed, which is their chapter tactic. It's going to have a special warlord trait, a special relic, a special stratagem, and finally a special psychic power. And note the psychic power does not take up one of the slots, so it's an extra power that everybody knows on top of what they already have. All right. So first we got the Cult of the Foreign Emperor. These guys, they're the OG Genestealer cult. You know them, you love them. Gosar Quintus. That's where this all started. But they've got some cool rules. So they can reroll charge rolls for any units with this creed. Note that creeds are given to everyone, even vehicles, everything. So keep that in mind. That's a little bit different than it was before. Also, they get cover from ranged attacks that originate from over 12 inches away. Which is pretty nice. That's a pretty common ability. You see that with like AdMech and things like that. Maybe not AdMech. No, it's different. Anyway, let's talk Raven Guard, baby. So their Warlord trait is Inscrutable Cunning. Once per battle round, when you use a Genestealer Cult's strategic ploy stratagem or battle tactic, you can reduce the CP cost by 1. Awesome Warlord trait. Definitely gives you a bunch of free CP every turn because those are great categories for strats. Their strats are amazing. We're going to go over those in a bit. Their stratagem is a Plan Generations in the Making, which is effectively now exactly the same as Vect, Agents of Vect from the Cabal of the Blackheart for Dark Eldar. And this one, if someone uses a stratagem for the rest of the game, it's going to be +1 command point to use that stratagem. It's going to not be usable on rulebook only strats. The relic is Sword of the Four-Armed Emperor, which is not just one sword, but 4 swords for the price of 1. That's right, 4 swords. Thank you. That's my hand model, John, showing you the counting. He's also my accountant. My financials are a terrible mess. It's a +1 strength power sword. So it replaces Occult Bone Sword or Locust Blades. It gives +4 attacks. It's strength +1, -4 AP, 1 flat damage. Anytime you roll a 6 to hit, it auto wounds the target. Pretty not terrible. Not great, but not terrible. And their psychic power is great, though, Undermine. It's a Malediction, Warp Charge 7, 18-inch range. Pick an enemy unit, excluding units that can fly. They subtract 3 inches from their move characteristic. They have advances, and they subtract 2 from charge rolls. Get Thunderfired in the Psychic phase. Next, we've got Hive Cult. The Hive Cult have 2 abilities. They've got the Disciplined Militants Cult Creed. They can fall back and shoot at -1 to hit, and they can advance or fall back and still do actions. I think that's really an interesting rule. Advancing and doing an action is very powerful. Also falling back, so people can't lock you in combat and make you unable to action your way to victory if you so desire. Next, we've got it's kind of cool if you're doing the one where you're doing actions in the middle of the table, you can kind of fall back and still do those just fine, or advance up and do them. That's awesome. Anyway, so you got Warlord trait, Hive Lord. When a Hive Cult core unit is within 6 inches of the Warlord, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack and unmodified to hit roll of 6, scores an extra hit. Totally awesome. It's awesome, like, except for there's not a lot of shooting Hive Cult core units, so you're going to get a bunch of extra, like maybe autogun hits or shotgun hits for this. I think it's not going to be a lot of extra mining lasers, probably. Anyway, so you've got Voktor's Talisman, which is their relic. Each time the bearer makes a melee attack, if you roll a 5+ to wound, it ignores all saves, no invulnerable saves or armor saves. Kind of cool in that. Next, we've got their stratagem, which is Fire Discipline. You pick a unit, and they get to crossfire the enemy. And crossfire is something that Games Workshop went over a little bit before. They can only shoot that unit, but they get automatically a crossfire token. So that unit they get +1 to hit against, which is pretty nice. And for the rest of your army will also get +1 to hit against that unit. You don't have to worry about that, which is pretty cool. Psychic power is Synaptic Blast. Warp charge 5. It's a Witchfire. Roll a d6, adding 2 to the result for each friendly Hive Cult core unit within 6 inches of the Psyker. So if you like pile on the bodies, baby, you can add a bunch of pluses to this. Anyway, if you roll less than their movement characteristic of the enemy unit, they take D3 mortal wounds, and this is the closest enemy unit within 18. If you roll equal to or greater than their movement characteristic, they take 3 flat mortal wounds. So definitely a neat power, maybe a little bit better than Smite potentially, depending on how many core units you have rocking around with you. Next, we've got the Bladed Cog. These guys, of course, are like the AdMech-inspired Genestealer Cult. All the models get a 6-up invul. Each time a model with this crew is selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 to wound roll. Awesome. Of course, because wound rerolls are always at a premium. They seem to be always to me much better than a to hit reroll. And then you get to add +3 inches to the range of the ranged weapons. This is awesome in that, like, a lot of GSC weapons are going to be kind of close range. It allows you to rapid fire a little bit closer, gives you some extra range on hand flamers, things like that. Definitely pretty nice. And it doesn't work though on grenades or caches of demolition charges. So no extra range on your blasting charges or your demo charges. Sorry guys, you're just going to have to get real close and throw grenades. Warlord trait is Single-Minded Obsession. So before the battle, you pick an enemy unit. While a friendly Bladed Cog unit is within 6 inches of the Warlord, each time a model in that unit makes an attack against an enemy unit, you can reroll the wound roll. So it's kind of like Old Grudges from Imperial Guard, except it only works on your core units. Not bad. Not great, but not bad. Definitely, especially with the ability to get +1 to wound on a lot of things. You can just like rapid fire some stuff to death with like autoguns. Like even a knight, you're wounding on 5s, which is pretty good if you expose it. Anyway, moving on, we have their relic, which is Mark of the Clon Omnissiah. The bearer gets a 4-up invul save, and at the start of the fight phase, roll a d6 for each enemy unit with an engagement range of the bearer. On a 2 through 3, they take a mortal wound. On a 4 through 5, they take 2 mortal wounds, and on a 6, they take 3 mortal wounds. That's a solid okay. Xenoform Bionics. If a unit is this is a stratagem you use pregame. There's no limit on this, so you can use it as many times as you want. Use it on a Bladed Cog infantry or biker unit. They get a 5-up invul. If the power level of the unit is 7 or more, then it does cost 2 command points. Otherwise, it just costs 1. So that's pretty good. Their psychic power is Broodvolt Surge. Warp charge 5 until the start of your next psychic phase. While a friendly Bladed Cog unit is within 3 inches of the Psyker, each time an attack with damage characteristic 1 is allocated to a model in the unit, add 1 to the armor saving throws. So if you combo this up with cover, there's also lurking and shadow. You can potentially have you can potentially get +3 to your armor save against damage 1 weapons. Not bad. You're looking at a 2-up save for your neophytes. All right, next we've got the Rusted Claw. So these guys are nomadic survivalists. If they get targeted with an AP -1 or -2 weapon, they reduce that AP by 1. Not bad. And each time they make a normal move or advance, they count as having to remain stationary until the end of the shooting phase. So no charging, of course, after that. But they do get to shoot, which is pretty nice. Warlord trait is Entropic Touch. This one's pretty great. It gives you Tesla on your melee weapon, so a 6 to hit does 2 extra hits in addition to that one that you already rolled. And improve the AP characteristic of melee weapons, excluding relics, by 1 for the bear. Pretty solid. The relic is great. Nomad's Mantle. So when the bear is eligible to shoot, charge, or manifest psychic powers, even if they've fallen back or advanced, which is great. That's a very powerful ability. Being able to fall back and still use psychic powers is awesome. Normally your psychic is banned from that unless he's Titanic. And each time you make a move, normal move, advance, fall back, or charge, you can move over enemy models or terrain, which is pretty great. Their Strat, on the other hand, drive-by demolitions. This lets you make a grenade attack in the movement phase. Whenever an Adelan unit makes a normal move, advances, or falls back, you pick a unit that you moved within 6 inches of. You huck your bomb. It does max hits. So if it's a D6, it does 6 hits. 6 shots, not hits. Important distinction. And then you've got Inescapable Decay for the psychic power. This is a great psychic power. It's a malediction, warp charge 6. Pick an enemy unit with an 18 invisible to the psyker. All of your AP that targets that unit gets an additional 1. So nice to get those auto guns to get -1 AP. Next, we've got the Pauper Princes. Baby, these guys are poor and royalty. They get +1 to hit with their melee attacks whenever they make a charge move, were charged, or perform heroic intervention. So their Genestealer called Space Wolves. And they ignore modifiers for combat attrition. Not bad. Warlord trait is Xenoprophet. Anytime you take an unquestioning unquestioning loyalty. Jeez, I can do this, guys. I can talk. Yeah, thanks, John. You don't roll a dice to see if it happens. It just automatically passes, so you can slough off wounds to your slubs. And you can do it within 6 inches instead of just 3. And friendly Pauper Princess core units within 6 can use that model's leadership characteristic instead of their own. Definitely not bad. I like that quite a bit. You can use this on Brood Brothers units too. So if you have like a big squad of conscripts or something like that, you can start sloughing off wounds to those guys 6 inches away for 5 points a wound for your buff like Patriarch or something. Next, you've got the Reliquary of Saint Tendaric. This is the relic. It's they get an aura, 6-inch aura of Pauper Princess core units within 6 get a 5+ invul. I think that's really solid. There's a Warlord trait too that can boost the range of your auras, so it can be a 9-inch range, like custom force field. It also affects melee attacks. It's not just against shooting. Yeah, so that's solid. Then you got Vengeance for the Martyred. So this is for if a Pauper Princess character dies until the end of the battle, each time a Pauper Princess unit makes a melee attack against that unit, the enemy unit, they get +1 to wound. So they hate you forever if you kill their dudes. Their psychic power is called Last Gasp. It's warp charge 5. You pick up Pauper Princess core unit with an 18 on a 5+ after a model dies to a melee attack. The enemy unit takes a mortal wound to a maximum of 5 mortal wounds per phase as a result of this psychic power. That's a solid okay. Finally for the list for the named ones, we get to my personal favorite, which is Twisted Helix. Twisted Helix, well known for meddling in the genetics of their followers. All their units get +1 strength. They get +1 to their move characteristic, and to wound roll of 1 to 2 always fails. So they get like mini transhuman. You can't wound them on a 2, which is cool. The Warlord trait is +1 damage on your Warlord's melee attacks. So it makes your Patriarch like damage 4. That's pretty rad. And then the Elixir of the Prime Specimen is their relic. This lets you get to pick one genomic enhancement ability, which we'll get to probably a lot later, to be honest. And if you have a Biophagous, and the Biophagous is the one that gives these out, that character gets to pick 2 instead, which are pretty powerful. You can get like exploding 6s to hit. Also, you can get like a 5+ feel no pain. Pretty solid. Their stratagem is for aberrants or abominant units. It's 1 command point. They get to count double wounds that they cause in melee for morale tests. So if they do 2 wounds to you, it counts as 4 models have died. And you can choose to frenzy if you want to instead of doing your normal attacks. You add 1 to that unit's attack characteristic, but change the damage characteristic of their weapons to 1. I guess if you need the extra attacks, it's not bad. Finally, psychic power, mutagenic deviation, warp charge 5, select a twisted helix unit within 12 and visible to the psyker until the start of your next psychic phase. Unmodified to hit roll of 6, auto wounds. Real cool. I like that one quite a bit. All right, so those are the named ones. They're all pretty solid. It just depends on what you want to do. Twisted Helix is definitely like the melee powerhouse. Also, Pauper Princes is good for that. If you want shooting, I would definitely say go with Rusted Claw or Bladed Clog. And then Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor is kind of the generic catch-all. They can do pretty much everything pretty well. Myriad Cult. So they have a very unique system for determining their cult creeds. So you get 4 points that you can spend on making like your successor chapter, so to speak, of your cult. And they have a bunch of different options in here. You can choose Splinter Cult, which is just copy one of the ones that's already in there. Otherwise, they've got each one of these costs various different points, and you can choose them up to 4. So you've got Hunter's Instincts, lets you reroll charges for 3. Impassioned also costs 3. They get +1 to hit whenever they in first round of combat. Symbiotic Broodmine, they can fall back and shoot at -1. So these are kind of the same like abilities that some of the other Hive Cult gets, but you get to customize them a little bit more. Deep Supplies, you can reroll to wound roll. Agile Gorillas, whenever they make a normal move or advance, they remain stationary. And you can't select that if you select the Martial Creed, which is each time a Crossfire infantry unit with this creed makes a ranged attack, unless that model's unit has moved this turn, you count as having a Crossfire marker. So that's basically +1 to hit, which makes sense because that would be pretty silly if you could do that. Thralls of the Patriarch cost 2, ignore combat attrition. Toxin Agents cost 2, unmodified to hit rolls of 6, auto wound unless it's against a vehicle or a monster. Accustomed to Toil is many transhuman. Ones and 2s to wound always fail. Industrial Affinity is really great. This one is each time a model in this creed makes an attack with an industrial weapon. So we're talking, I think, like the shooting weapons and things like that, and also some of the close combat weapons. You can ignore any to hit roll, ballistic skill, or weapon skill modifiers. That's pretty good. Alien Fury, an extra 1 inch to pile in and consolidate. War Convoy, bikers and vehicles get a 6-up feel no pain. Synaptic Resonance, you can reroll psychic test dice of 1 or 2. And Cold Eye Killers, anytime you roll a 6 to wound, improve the AP on their melee attack by 1. So a lot of different really neat options. I really like this system for designing custom cults. I think it's great. I really hope to see more like this in the future because it kind of creates a little bit more balance to this. All right. Next, we're going to start with stratagems. So stratagems, man, they've got a lot, and they're good. So Bore Through, use this in the fight phase for 1 command point. When a Genestealer Cult unit is selected to fight, industrial weapons get to reroll to wound rolls against monsters or vehicles. Just excellent, just excellent. Really makes those like rock saws or aberrant weapons really hit home. Rapid Advance, this lets you auto 6-inch advance for 1 command point for Genestealer Cult's Genestealer, Biker, or Vehicle units. Awesome, especially for the pure strains. Auto 6 advance is pretty dope. 1 with the Shadows. Whenever you get targeted by a ranged attack, you can pay 1 command point and you get +1 to... as long as you're receiving cover, you get an extra +1 to your cover save. Dig Them Out for 1 command point. Use a stratagem in your shooting phase when a Genestealer Cult unit is selected to shoot. At the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack with an industrial weapon that targets a unit within 12 inches of it, they count as being exposed, so +1 to hit. So you just have to be within 12 for shooting. That's pretty great. Overload fuel cells, they did show us. It's pretty awesome. You can add, basically in exchange for getting hot for a shooting or melee attack, you can get, so on a one to hit, the unit takes a mortal wound. But if it's a ranged weapon, they get +1 damage. If it's a melee weapon, they have +1 strength. Very nice. Monstrous Vigor. And sorry, this is for only industrial weapons, not for... So it's definitely more of a shooting strat than I would say it's a melee strat. Monstrous Vigor is for Abominants or Aberrants. If you have 5 models, it costs 1. If you have more than 5, it costs 2. It gives you Transhuman. So it can't be wounded on a 4+, unless you roll 4+. Raking Fire is 1 command point. So this is for an Atalan or Achilles Ridgerunner unit. When they're selected to shoot until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, if the target has a crossfire marker and is exposed when it was selected as a target, you can reroll it to hit roll. Pretty cool. All right, next we've got Massed Firearms. So this is when you shoot with a Genestealer Cult Crossfire unit that contains 6 or more models. Each time a model of the unit makes a ranged attack, if they target all one enemy unit that has a crossfire marker, which is pretty easy to get, you just have to hit them. Then GW previewed that, so you guys should know what that does. Check it out on their website if you don't. An unmodified to hit roll, auto wounds. An unmodified to hit roll of 6, auto wounds, sorry. Pretty good. Devoted Crew, 1 command point, Genestealer Cult's vehicle, acts on full. Great for your rock grinders, things like that. Hypermetabolism, Genestealer Cult's character regains D3 wounds in the command phase. Nice if your dude got hurt and you're afraid he's going to get hurt some more. Make sure he doesn't. Be good. You got Rig to Blow. If you have a cache of demolition charges on your vehicle, you can pay 1 command point when it dies and it just auto explodes. Yay! Data Parasite. This is for a Clamavis model. Pick an enemy vehicle with an 18. Roll a d6 on a 3+. Until the start of your next command phase, the enemy vehicle model is considered to have the number of wounds it has remaining. If it's Titanic, it costs 2 command points instead of 1. So basically, you have to bracket them for 1 or 2 command points, depending on how good it is. A 3+, though, I don't know. Yeah, it's decent. If you feel like you can roll that 3+, you got it. Legendary Demise. So if your Kellermorph dies, he gets to shoot for 2 command points before you pick him up. That's kind of cool. Gestalt Consciousness. So this lets you, whenever a cult psychic power or psyker manifests a power, instead of having it target this is a blessing. Instead of having it target a unit within range, you can just have it hit any unit on the table. Gotta love that. Then we've got Reckless Demolitions. So this is when a Genestealer Cult unit is selected to fight for 1 command point. You get to throw grenades into combat. So 1 model gets to throw a grenade into combat. It auto hits. Yeah. So you still have to roll a number of dice. It doesn't auto do max hits or anything like that. And then finally, Leaders of the Cult here. Sorry, not finally. We've got Leaders of the Cult. Use a stratagem before the battle when you're mustering your army. If you have a Patriarch, pay 1 command point. And 2 other cult models with the HQ battlefield roll from your army get to determine 1 Warlord trait for each of them. And they must be Warlord traits that they can have. Each Warlord trait in your army must be unique. Yeah, you can only use it once. So this is the only way the Genestealer Cults can get an extra Warlord trait. But pretty powerful. You can get 2 for the price of 1. Okay, so next we have Genestiler's Gifts. So this is your extra relic stratagem. You know them, you love them. You can use it twice per battle for a strike force. Then we have Pack Hunters. So use a stratagem in your shooting phase. Select 1 enemy unit within 6 inches and visible to a Cult Atalan Jackals unit from your army. Till the end of the phase, each time a model with in another friendly Cult unit makes a ranged attack against an enemy unit, they treat them as being exposed. So +1 to wound. Very nice. So that way you don't have to set up like these complicated crossfire scenarios. You can just kind of like run up a unit of bikes and say, no, we get +1 to wound against you, bro. Then we have Genetic Lineage. Use a stratagem in your charge phase. Select 1 Acolyte Hybrids or Hybrid Metamorph unit from your army. They can advance and charge. Nice. Meticulous Uprising. Use this stratagem when you would reveal your ambush markers. If you're playing Combat Patrol or Incursion, you can remove 1. If you're playing Strike Force or Onslaught, you can remove up to 2. For each ambush marker you removed, you can set them back up again anywhere on the battlefield that's wholly within your deployment zone and more than 9 inches away from enemy models. Once you have done so, reveal all your ambush markers as normal. So this basically lets you kind of play a little bit of a shell game with your ambush markers. You can move them over to the other side of the table so that maybe people can't shoot them as well. So you get 2 of them for 2 command points, but that's also 2 command points. That's quite a lot. Next, we've got clandestine goals. This is one that's kind of like the Dark Angel stratagem. You get to, when you pick your secondaries, you can pay 1 command point and say, no, one of them is secret, and I'll tell you what it is as soon as I score points on it. Kind of cool. It might be really useful if you kind of want to bait your opponent into making some bad decisions. Next, we have Booby Trap. Use a stratagem at the end of your turn. Select an objective marker you control that has a Saboteur or Genestealer Cult's core unit within range of it. And the next time an enemy unit, excluding aircraft units, ends any kind of move within range of the objective marker, roll a d6. On 2 through 4, they take d3 mortal wounds. On a 5+, they take 3 flat. You can only select each objective marker 1 time, so you can leave them a present. Everybody loves that. Lurk in the shadows. Use a stratagem at the start of your opponent's shooting phase. Select 1 Genestealer Cult's infantry unit from your army, not core, so note that, so that you can use this on like pure strains or aberrants. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy model shoots, if that model is not the closest available target or within 12 inches of that enemy model, then until that shooting is resolved, that enemy model cannot target that unit. In addition, until the end of the phase, if the selected unit has the bodyguard ability, it loses that ability. So this is kind of like Cloud of Flies, but for 2 command points instead of like 1,000,000 command points. Yeah, 4. Thank you, John. We've got Return to the Shadows. And this one is amazingly powerful. Use the stratagem in your movement phase when a Genestealer Cult's infantry unit from your army is selected to move, or in your fight phase after a Genestealer Cult's infantry unit from your army has resolved all of its attacks, but before it makes a consolidation move. If that unit is more than 6 inches away from any enemy units, remove it from the battlefield. In the reinforcement step of your next movement phase, set that unit back up on the battlefield anywhere that is more than 9 inches away from any enemy models. If the battle ends and that unit is not on the battlefield, it is destroyed. So, first of all, for 1 command point, it lets you restrike a unit, which is great. And this is any Genestealer Cult's infantry unit, which is awesome. But it's not core locked, so you can use it on your really good units too. Or at the end of the fight phase, after it wipes out the enemy, it can just be like, no, there's nobody around. We're just going to peace out and go back into reserve because like I don't want to have to fight anyone. That's awesome. What a great ability. It's kind of like the Tyrannid stratagem that lets you do this. That kind of lets you like move away after you fight, after you wipe out the enemy and there's nobody within 6. Super powerful. Like really lets you preserve your strength and make sure your guys don't get shot up too much. We've got Covering Fire. Use this stratagem in your... next page. Oh, yeah, sorry. My God. Covering Fire. Use this stratagem in your charge phase. Select 1 enemy unit that has a crossfire marker. They don't get to Overwatch. They don't get to set to defend. And they can't heroically intervene. Yeah, take that. Take that, Space Wolves. Then we've got Tunnel Crawlers. This one's really great, actually. I like this one a lot. Use this in your charge phase. Select 1 area terrain feature until the end of the turn. Each time a Genestealer Cult's infantry unit from your army declares a charge against an enemy unit within that area terrain feature, the enemy doesn't get to Overwatch or set to defend, and they ignore the effects of difficult ground from that area terrain feature, which is pretty freaking nice. It really hurts someone who's hiding in like a ruin or something like that, and helps you to kind of take them down a little bit better. Or if they're in a woods, you're going to get to ignore the -2 to charge penalty that you might otherwise have to take. Next, we've got Fanatical Devotion. This one was previewed. I'm not going to go over that. It basically lets you heroically intervene 6 inches with a core unit if your Patriarch, Primus, or Magus gets charged. Next, we have Roaming Engagement. So this is 2 command points. Use a stratagem in your shooting phase after making attacks with an Atalan or Achilles Ridge Runner unit from your army. They can move in a normal move of 7 inches. So they get Fire and Fade like Eldar have. Really good. So like pop into terrain, see your enemy with a bunch of Ridge Runners, shoot them, pay 2 command points. No, I don't want to get shot back. Please and thank you. Next, we have coordinated assault. Use this in your fight fight phase. Select an enemy unit that has a crossfire marker and is within engagement range of any Genestealer Cult unit from your army, and they get fights last. So if you crossfire them, fights last, real good. Neural overload. This stratagem is so powerful. You have a Sanctus, you attack. If an enemy model loses any wounds as a result of the attack, roll 3d6. If you roll greater than the enemy's leadership characteristic, they lose their auras, and if they're a psyker, they're also going to take perils. Yeah, that's like amazing. Like if you're a psyker and you get hit with a Sanctus rifle, especially the relic one, which is damage 3, like not only are you maybe taking a mortal wound on a 4+ to wound, but also then maybe you're probably taking there's a good chance you're taking perils as well. Yeah, that's great. Each enemy unit can only be affected by the stratagem once. It also lets you shut down troublesome auras, which everyone loves. Summon familiar. Since the familiars are now kind of a one-use like marker, for one command point, you can summon back the familiar, which is kind of interesting. It might be useful. It's super situational, though. Primed explosive. Use this in your shooting phase when a Genestealer Cult's model from your army shoots with a grenade weapon. Until the end of the phase, you get max shots. Cool. All right, so that's the stratagems. Man, they've got some really good strats. But we'll move on to proficient planning. So these are abilities that you can buy for your Genestealer Cults. Games Workshop previewed these a little bit, a couple of them. But man, there's a bunch of them, and there's so many good ones in here. They're making you pay a few points for them. Man, they do a lot of work. You can only have one of each of these in your army, but you can take as many of them as you want on as many different units as you want, as long as you have a Genestealer Cult's detachment. All right, so first one, we got line and weight. So infantry only. When this unit is set up on the battlefield, results of being underground, it can lie in wait. If it does so, set them up anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 3 inches away from enemy models, and they can't charge. So this is just like the stratagem previously, but you just have to pay points for it. The points for this particular one are 20 points. So it's still very good, though, especially like with a unit of hand flamers or something like that. You can snipe some stuff out. I like it with the Kellermorph as well, potentially. And this is a great way to get crossfire exposed on units. Or if you have like a fat unit or even a small unit of acolytes just that can pop up and do this, super powerful. Exacting planner. This is for a Primus model. GW previewed this one. It lets you do its meticulous planner once more, which is reroll 1s to wound. And you can target units that aren't core within 9 inches instead, and he gets to do it twice. So, let's say you have 2 units of Ridge Runners, they can reroll 1s to wound, which is not something they would normally get to do. So yeah, real good. Next, we've got Alchemist Supreme. So this is for a Biophagist model. Whenever you give a unit this ability, select one cult core or aberrant unit from your army, and then select one genomic enhancement for them, and they get that. So this is pre-game. You don't have to be within 3 inches like normal in the command phase. Man, you get to pick it. It's not something that they just get to, like, you have to roll. Super good, and it's really inexpensive. It's not real inexpensive. It's not the cheapest one, but it's only 15 points, and you can do stuff like give them a 5-up Feel No Pain, which is really good. We've got a Trap Sprung. So when this unit is set up as reinforcements, they get to roll 3d6 for charge and discard 1. Super powerful. There's a bunch of different ways to get +1 to charge in this book. It really works out for a unit to pop up from underground, and they get to roll this and get +1 or +2 to charge. You can reroll all the dice with a command point. It just makes it for a super reliable out of deep strike charge with a unit that's going to hit like a freight train. We've got Perfect Ambush. So this is for crossfire units only. When they're set up on the battlefield as reinforcements, you can use this ability. Select an enemy unit within 12 inches. Until the end of the turn, each time a model in this unit makes a ranged attack against the enemy unit, it treats as having a crossfire marker and being exposed for that attack. So +1 to hit and wound when they pop up. Really good for like a big unit or just a unit that's good with crossfire, like maybe, again, like Ridge Runners or something like that. Oh, no, they can't be underground. it's just good. Like, check it out. Like, it's good on hand flamers, that kind of stuff as well. From every angle. So this is at the start of the first battle round. This lets you put a unit in strategic reserves, and they get to come in as if it were one turn earlier or one turn later than it actually is. So first turn, you can have guys outflank from strategic reserve, like as long as they're outside of your opponent's deployment zone. And turn 2, they can come in anywhere on the table edge. It's a really good ability. Just you can have units where people really don't want them to be. You've got meditations in Shadow. This is for a Psyker model. He gets to know an extra power. That's really bad. Don't take that one. We've got Excavate. This one is awesome. It's 20 points. I feel like it's a gimme. Maybe it's not. I feel like it really is disruptive to your opponent's plans. Before the battle, this unit is set up underground and can excavate. If it does so in the resolve pre-battle abilities setup of the mission sequence, select one terrain feature on the battlefield. It cannot be a fortification. That terrain feature loses defensible, heavy cover, light cover, and inspiring, and gains the difficult ground trait. So if you pick a unit, for instance, if you pick like a ruin that your opponent is deployed behind or in at the start of the game, and you want to slow down their units somewhat if they don't have fly, and kind of like that this is their fire base, like you can make it very difficult for them because they're going to get difficult terrain. It's going to give them a -2 inch to their movement. It can really mess with their plans and make getting to objectives on the first turn a lot more difficult, especially in the center table. And it kind of removes the benefits that they would otherwise get from being in that terrain. They came from below as non-vehicle unit. If the unit is set up in ambush, when revealing ambush markers, you can do one of the following. You can remove the ambush marker from the battlefield and set them up in underground instead. So you can set the ambush marker on the table and then say, no, I'm going second. I don't want to deploy them. I'm going to put them in underground. Or after setting the unit up from an ambush marker, they can make a normal move as if it were your movement phase. This is awesome on pure strain Genestealers because they effectively get a scout move. So if you go first, you can be like, all right, well, I'm going to pop up. I'm going to move 8 inches, and then I'm going to auto advance and move another 8 inches during my first movement phase. So they're going to move 8 plus 6. So that's 22 inches, and then they still get to charge. So like first turn, here's 10 pure strains. They're going to punch you in the face. Pretty good. And then finally, we've got our time is nigh. The first time a unit is selected to fight in the battle, until the fight is resolved, they get +1 attack to all of them, which is awesome. Like, it doesn't stack with Might from Beyond, but just a free +1 attack for like 10 points is very good. All right. So next we've got Warlord traits. Warlord traits, you've got, and keep in mind, I actually don't care for the Warlord traits in general for this book. I think they're kind of weak, but that's fine. A lot of the cult ones are pretty good. I'm almost skeptical of taking like the Broodmind like stratagem to give extra Warlord traits, just because I don't think any of these are like amazing. So the first one is Focus of Adoration. Core and Pure Strain Genestealers within 6 inches of the Warlord can do heroic interventions. That one's kind of cool. Shadowstalker is -1 to hit on the Warlord. Biomorph Adaptation is +1 attack and toughness. That one's okay too. It's not great, but it's okay. Prowling Adjutant. Once per turn, when the Warlord is selected at the target of a charge before the charge roll is made, and after firing Overwatch, it can make a normal move of 6 inches. So you can say, no, I don't want to fight you. I'm just going to leave. Fighting is stupid. Alien Majesty. This one's one of the better ones. It adds 3 inches to the range of their auras. If you have auras that are good. So like if you have, for instance, the 5+ Invul Save aura, which is pretty great. Or like Old Grudges or that kind of stuff, like that. Those kinds of abilities. Like if you can extend the range of those are pretty dope. Also, you get to add the 3 inches to the range of Meticulous Planner, Jackal, and Priority Target, which are all pretty interesting. That makes those, I think, mostly 12 inches. There might be some of them 9 inches. Finally, we have Preternatural Speed. The Warlord gets to reroll melee attacks to hit rolls, and it gets fight first. So not terrible. Not great, but not terrible. All right. Next, we have the Broodmind Discipline. One thing I'd like to say about this, and I found this to be kind of interesting, they did decrease the casting ability of a lot of these, but I think that they also nerfed them pretty hard. Some of them are still pretty good, but we'll go through them. Mass Hypnosis is in there. It's Warp Charge 7, 18 inches invisible to an enemy unit. They subtract 1 from their attacks and they fight last. It's a good psychic power. Mind Control's changed a lot. It's Warp Charge 6, select an enemy unit within 18 inches and visible to the Psyker. Until the start of your next psychic phase, each time a model in the unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll. And if the psychic test is equal to or greater than that unit's leadership characteristic, they subtract 1 from their leadership characteristic and subtract 1 from combat attrition tests taken. So yeah, that's cool. It's not like it was. You don't get to like shoot a knight or something like that. Oh, John gives me the thumbs down. No, I think that's good. It was stupid. I don't know what that was, but yeah, we'll go with it. Guns, yes, thank you. Sonic Blast is Witchfire. This one is Warp Charge 5. Select one enemy unit with an 18 invisible to the Psyker. For the purpose of selecting the enemy unit, unless the enemy unit is within engagement range of the Psyker, the Lookout Sir rule applies as if it were a ranged weapon with a range characteristic of 18. I guess like you can bodyguard this one. I guess that's why they wrote that. Otherwise, like... Oh, because you can just pick someone with 18. It doesn't have to be the closest one. Okay. Anyway, if they take D3 mortal wounds, if the psych tests were equal to or greater than that unit's leadership characteristic, they take 3 flat. Okay, that's fine. Mental Onslaught, Warp Charge 5. Select an enemy unit within 24 invisible to the Psyker and roll 46. For each result of a 5+, that unit takes 1 mortal wound. If any models from that unit are destroyed as a result of these mortal wounds, but the unit is not destroyed, keep repeating the process, reducing the number of dice rolled by 1 each time, 3d6 on the first repeat, 2 on the second, etc., until any of the following conditions are met. The number of dice is 0. You roll no more results of 5+, or no more enemy models are destroyed. So yeah, that's definitely a lot different. Also fine. Not great. Psychic Stimulus. This is a Blessing, Warp Charge 6. Select one friendly cult unit within 18 invisible to the Psyker. They get to advance and charge, or fall back and charge, and shoot as well. And they don't suffer the penalty for firing assault weapons in the same turn in which they advanced. Note that if you do this on Hive Cult, they still are -1 to hit with their shooting attacks. Anyway, then finally we've got Might from Beyond, Warp Charge 6, select an enemy or a friendly Genestealer Cult unit within 18 invisible. They get +1 attack. So it's not +1 attack and strength anymore, but the Warp Charge is much lower. So still good. All right. Let's talk about some relics. They definitely have relics. So the first one is Sword of the Void's Eye. So this replaces a Cult Bone Sword or Locust Blades. This gives you, it's +2 strength, -3 AP, 2 flat damage, and you can reroll to hit and reroll to wound. Not bad. Hand of Aberrance. So this replaces the Primus's Toxin Injector. It gives you Strength User, -2 AP, 3 flat damage. They get 1 extra attack with the weapon. And when you fight a unit that's not a vehicle or Titanic, you wound on a 2+. Heck yeah. Nothing like that Thunderhammer that wounds on a 2+, right? Everybody loves it. We got Amulet of the Voidworm. You get a 4+ invul. You can't Overwatch them, set to defend them either. And once per battle, you can just choose to take a 6 on one of your saves. That's cool. Presser's Brain. So this one is very interesting. I think this one is pretty kind of spicy. You have to have an auto pistol. The bearer gets Crossfire. So if you don't have the Crossfire ability already, you can get the Crossfire ability by taking this pistol. So for people who were complaining about the Reductus Saboteur not having Crossfire, well, guess what? She can. And so this is a 15-inch range pistol, pistol 3, strength 4, -2 AP, and 2 damage. And Whenever you shoot it, they count as having a crossfire marker and being exposed for the pistol, which is pretty dope. I like this one a lot. These are the Wormtooth rounds for the Kellermorph. So you can choose to use these instead of the Kellermorph's normal pistol, and it gives you kind of an interesting different profile to use. So you get heavy 1 on your weapons. They become strength 6 minus 3 AP and 3 flat damage, but they don't have the abilities of the Liberator auto stub. But they still get the abilities that the Kellermorph has. So we'll go over that a bit when we talk about the Kellermorph. But I kind of like those. I think they're decent at least. Next, we have the Dagger of Swift Sacrifice. So this is for the Magos Biodagger or the Sanctus Biodagger. Each time the bear is selected to fight, you can reroll 1 to wound roll. Awesome. And each time the bear is fought, select one enemy model that lost any wounds as a result of an attack made by the Magus Biodagger or the Sanctus Biodagger, but was not destroyed. Roll a d6. On a 3+, they take d3 mortal wounds. It's not good. It's not good. Next, we've got the Crouchling. So the Crouchling is a model with a Psychic Familiar. Replace the Familiar with this ability. Once per psychic phase, you can reroll a psychic test, and each time a psychic test is passed for this model, if all the dice for that test were the same, that psychic power or psychic action cannot be denied. So if you roll doubles or triples, I don't know how you're rolling triples, but yeah, maybe somehow you are. You can't deny that power. Kind of cool, and you get to reroll it. Then you have Gift from Beyond. I like this one a lot. I think it's like. I was thinking about this a bit, and it seems like a really good upgrade for the Sanctus. So the Sanctus, so it could be on the Sanctus, it could also be on the Jackal Alphas. It's the same stats as the normal sniper rifle. It just becomes damage 3 instead of damage 2. But the difference between a damage 2 and a damage 3 sniper rifle is pretty significant, especially when you're doing a mortal wound on a 4+, because a lot of characters have 4 wounds. And you can also use the ability to maybe make them take a perils test if they're a psyker. I think you can really nail some characters with this. I think it's a great one. I don't know if it's quite as good as the Unwilling Orb, which is the next one. This is for a psyker model. They can attempt to deny 1 extra psychic power. They can deny a psychic power from anywhere on the table. So they can hang out in a corner and say, no, I don't like that power. And whenever they attempt to manifest a malediction or witchfire power, they get to add +1 to that attempt. A bunch of great abilities, really cool. Next, we have the Cranial Inlay. So this is for a Nexos model. When this bear is on the battlefield, each time you spend a command point to use a stratagem, you can roll a d6. On a 5+, the command point is refunded. So you get to roll this for each command point. And you can use its strategic coordination 1 additional time. This one's very good. If you're taking an Nexus, I think this is an auto take for your relic. And then finally, we have the Voice of the Liberator for a Clamavus. And you get to add 6 inches to the range of the bear's Proclamation Hailer and Voice of Truths abilities. So these are kind of the buffs and debuff abilities that this model has. Normally they're 12 inches. This boosts them to 18. So 50% range increase is pretty nice. And while a friendly cult unit is within 12 inches of the bear, add +1 to their leadership. So pretty great. Okay, next we're going to talk about the secondaries specifically that GSC get. So we've got 1 Shadow Operation, 1 Battlefield Supremacy, 1 Purge the Enemy. So Shadow Operations, we've got Sabotage Critical Location. So after choosing deployment zones, your opponent must place 2 critical location markers on the battlefield. Each of these critical location markers must be 9 inches away from any battlefield edge and more than 9 inches away from any other critical location marker. If both players must place these markers because you're doing GSC versus GSC, and for some reason you both taken Sabotage Critical Location. I imagine there's some kind of weak flailing going on between these 2 players. You can choose the following action if you're within 3 inches of the center of one of these markers. And keep in mind, these aren't objective markers. Like normally Shadow Operations specifically revolve around like objective markers that are already present on the table, but these ones are like their own special markers. So if you're going to use this, like bring your own markers. I don't know. Anyway, so 1 or more infantry or biker units from your army, excluding character units other than the Reductus Saboteur who can do this action, can start to perform this action at the end of the movement step move unit step of your movement phase. Each unit from your army that starts to perform this action must be within 3 inches of the center of a different one of your opponent's critical location markers, and no enemy units, excluding aircraft, can be within 3 inches of the center of that critical location marker. So can't be controlled by the enemy, or the enemy can't even be there even if you control it, but it's not an objective marker, so you can't control it. Anyway, the action is complete at the end of your turn, provided the unit that performing it is still within range of the same critical location marker. If the action is successfully completed, you have sabotaged that critical location, remove it from the battlefield. Score victory points each time a unit from your army completes the sabotage critical location action, as shown. So if you do it on turn 2, you get 9 victory points. If you do it on turn 3, you get 7. Turn 4, 5. Turn 5, 3 points. And you can't score it in the first round. This is really hard. If your opponent has any kind of idea of how to stop you from doing this, it's going to be very difficult for them. It's going to be very difficult to score this one. I think it's like, just don't take it. Just don't take it. Don't do it. Choose something else. Choose life. Then we've got Brood Swarm. This one's kind of interesting. So at the end of your turn, score 1 victory point for each of the following that applies to a maximum of 4. And there's 4 of them, so you can only get 4 points for that, surprisingly. If you have more models in your opponent's deployment zone than your opponent does, if you have more models within your deployment zone than your opponent does, so almost always you're getting this one unless your opponent is like hyper aggressive. You have more models on the battlefield that are not within either player's deployment zone than your opponent does, or all 3 of these apply. You get a point for each of those. Now, if you're playing against knights, like you're taking this one all day long, because you don't have to control objectives, you don't have to fight them anywhere. If you want to control objectives, you can, but all you have to do is do this 3 times, and you'll get it. And Genestealer Cults are so versatile. If you get like 1 unit a lot of times in their deployment zone, the knight player isn't going to be able to like do it. Anyway, it's decent. Like, I think that you can get 2 points for this every turn pretty easily, especially if you have a lot of models on the table. But otherwise, like it's kind of situational. I would definitely think about what your opponent can do, what your opponent's model like army is, and that kind of stuff, and keep that in mind. Next, we got Purge the Enemy with Ambush. So at the end of your turn, score victory points in the following ways. Score 1 point if 1 or more enemy units were destroyed this turn while they had a crossfire marker. Hell yeah, let's crossfire these guys. Score 1 victory point if 1 or more enemy units were destroyed this turn by units from your army that were set up from ambush or from underground this turn. Awesome. Yeah, so on the first turn, like your guys deploy from markers and you blow somebody up, you get a point for that. Score 1 victory point if 1 or more enemy units were destroyed this turn as a result of ranged attacks made by a model from your army, and that enemy unit was exposed when it was selected as the target for that ranged attack. No enemy units must have been exposed as specified on page 89 rather than by any other means. So, like, you don't get to do it just if they get exposed from, like, I don't know, that relic pistol or something like that. You actually have to use the normal exposed rules, which means you have to draw a line. If you're going to play Genestealer Cult, I'd really recommend investing in like a laser line level, so that you can see exactly where you're crossfiring, where you're exposing units, that kind of stuff. So I think Brood Swarm and Ambush are decent. Like, those are definitely options that you could take. I think Sabotage critical locations, you probably should not.
Can I just jump in here? I know we're doing a serious review. But this art piece on the right-hand side, I think, is the goofiest art that I think I've ever seen in a long time here.
Do you not like that one?
I like it. My favorite thing is this guy right here is wearing his hood up. I feel because he's a regular human who's embarrassed that his deformities haven't come in like everyone else's. Because he's the only guy with his hood up all the way. Because he's hiding his shame. He's
sensitive about his brow ridges.
Yeah, look, I'm sorry. I only have a forehead, jerks. Come on now. All right, back to the hot takes.
Solid. Yep. All right. Let's move on. John, we got data sheets, baby. Up Crusade rules. Hey, the Crusade rules are really cool, though. Like, they've got some super flavorful stuff in there. Definitely check those out. If you're going to play your GSC, definitely consider the Crusade. Playing them in Crusade, you're going to have a good ass time. All right. We've got the cult keyword, what that means. Yeah, everybody has to belong to a cult. All the units in one detachment have to be from the same cult. No mixing and matching. you've got abilities. So you've got Conceal. So Conceal is kind of the old underground ambush or cult ambush. So you can choose to be either ambush or underground. Ambush is the marker. These are mostly the same. If a unit ambushes, you put them in a marker and they have to deploy basically around that marker. And those are done on the first turn at the start of your command phase. If you have the first turn, otherwise it's at the end of the enemy movement phase. You have to deploy your army. And definitely swap that clock over. You know those GSC players, they're taking their sweet time deploying their army on your turn. Anyway, underground basically means that they get to deep strike, except that you just have to be more than 8 inches away from the enemy, or 6 inches away from enemy models, but you can't charge. Really cool. So definitely you get that super quick charge, which is pretty nice. Unquestioning Loyalty is an ability that a lot of Genestealer Cult units have. Brood Brothers get this as well. Each time you make a saving throw for a cult character model, if it's failed, select a friendly cult or Brood Brothers unit model within 3 inches of that character and take an unquestioning loyalty test for it. Roll a d6, adding 1 if the character is a Patriarch. On a 4+, the test is passed. That character doesn't take any damage, but that model dies. So pretty cool ability. Next we have Crossfire. You know what? I'm not going to talk about Crossfire, John. I'm not doing it. Read this ability. There's a really great GW article on this, but it's an ability that you really can, and you also get in this codex, you get a sheet of, first of all, you get a 9-inch range ruler, which is great. And you get some ambush tokens. And if you flip those over to the other side, boom, Crossfire markers. You got them both. Baby, Games Workshop is really taking care of you with this book. That's why it's the same price. All right. So we've got the Patriarch is the first data sheet for the data sheets that are available for this book. Just like we talked about in the Shadowthrone box, excuse me, he's got 7 wounds, and he's got 6 attacks. Those are definitely some slight improvements. He did go down to strength 5. He's the only model that actually has like old school Rending Claws. So if you roll a 6 to wound, they get extra AP, and his damage goes to 3 instead of 2. Other Genestealer Cult models, they're just rolled in, like they're just getting extra AP on their attacks and that kind of stuff. But we'll look at that when we look at other data sheets. He gets to reroll failed wound rolls on the for his attacks, which is pretty nice. All right. He can take a Psychic Familiar, which lets him reroll one Psychic test once per battle. That costs some points. He can also advance and charge. He's a living idol, so you ignore combat attrition within 6 inches of him. He's got Conceal, and he's also has preternatural reflexes, so he's a 4 pinful save, just like other Genestealers. Did I spoil it? Yep, probably. Anyway, now he can manifest 2 psychic powers instead of just 1, and he knows 2 powers. Pretty solid. He's 140 points. We've got the Primus. His Bone Sword got an extra point of damage, which is pretty nice. And he gets an extra attack with his Toxin Injector Claw. The Toxin Injector Claw is -1 AP and always wounds on a 2+. He's got the Cult Demagogue ability, so a 6-inch aura of reroll 1s to hit. And he gets to pick a cult core unit within 9 inches, and they get to reroll 2 wound rolls of 1. Pretty nice little character. He has the Conceal and Unquestioning Loyalty, so he can take wounds for. He can take 1 wound for the Patriarch if he so desires. The Patriarch, though, will not sacrifice himself for anyone else. He's very selfish. He really needs to work on that. Next, we have the Magus. And so the Magus, your Psyker, he has a 6-inch aura for cult infantry and biker units. That they get a 5-up feel no pain against mortal wounds. He gets to attempt 2 psychic powers, and he has his staff, his 4 staff, which is +3 strength, -1 AP, D3 damage, and his bio dagger, which He cannot put more than one attack on it every turn. But if he does, it's only strength 1, so it's probably not going to do a wound. But if he rolls a 3+ to wound, it does a mortal wound in addition to normal damage. So if you roll a 3+, if you roll a 6, he does mortal wound, and you got to take a saving throw. So watch out. All right. Then we have you know what I didn't go over, actually? I didn't go over Summon the Cult, John. I missed it. Can you go back one page? Oh. Okay. So each time a Neophyte Hybrid unit from your army summons the Cult, D6 models get thrown back to it. And this is what they can do with their Cult icon, but also the Icon Ward can do this for any unit. And then any other time a Genestealer Cult's unit from your army. Sorry, this is only for core units, but it's pretty good, or potentially pretty good. I like it a lot on Adelan Jackals, but we'll go over that when we get to their thing. But they come back with full wounds, and if they can summon more than once, the results are cumulative, but you can't bring back more than 6 Neophytes or 3 models to any other Genestealer unit if you have multiple characters with that ability. All right, sorry. Now we can go back to the Acolyte Icon Ward, which has changed quite a bit. He's now he doesn't have the +1 strength banner or anything like that. He has a Nexus of Devotion, so you can pick in the command phase a cult core unit within 6 inches, and they get to summon the cult. So units that can't normally take a banner, like Adelan Jackals, he can do this on. He also gets a special action that he can do, which gives him a 6-inch aura of, and so the action starts at the end of the move unit step, and it's completed at the start of your charge phase. So the aura turns back on at the start of the charge phase, and he gives a 6-inch aura of +1 to charge. For cult infantry, biker, or character units, which is pretty nice. Then we have the Jackal Alphys. So same basic stats on her. She also has an auto pistol, a cult sniper rifle, and blasting charges. So the cult sniper rifle is a sniper rifle with strength 5, -3 AP, and 2 damage. A 4+ to wound does a mortal wound in addition. She has conceal and questioning loyalty, but she also has the crossfire rule. So if she shoots at a unit, it's going to get a crossfire marker because her weapon does more than 1 damage. And so she has the priority target rule. In your command phase, select 1 friendly cult core crossfire unit within 9 inches of this model, and then select 1 enemy unit within 36 and visible to this model. Until the end of the turn, each time this model or a model in that friendly unit make a ranged attack against the enemy unit, they count as being exposed. So it lets you get exposed against an enemy unit without having to actually get behind them to get the exposed, and having to draw like an imaginary line through the shooting model to the enemy to the unit behind them. Then Master Outrider. While this unit is within 6 inches of friendly cult Adelan Jackal or vehicle units, enemy models cannot target this model with ranged weapons unless it's the closest available target, and she's -1 to hit. And she can shoot or declare a charge in a turn in which she fell back. So she's really versatile, pretty quick, pretty slippery, kind of nice in that way. And -1 to hit, and she has basically no character targeting within 6 inches of vehicles or jackals, which is cool. All right, then we've got our first troop unit. We've got the Acolyte Hybrids. So we've looked at Games Workshop. They did preview their stat line, so they did get toughness 4. Which is it's just a nice little upgrade. So they're interesting in that the cult claws and knives, usually they used to have rending claws and then a cult knife, which gave an extra attack, but had no AP. But now there's just 1 stat line. So they get +1 attack. They can attack 1 extra time with that weapon, and it's -2 AP all the time. So each model has 3 strength 4, -2 AP attacks, which is totally great. That's a decent assault unit. And then they also have these industrial weapons like the heavy rock cutter, heavy rock drill, heavy rock saw. So the rock saw is the same. The heavy rock drill has changed a bit. It used to do mortal wounds, and you keep rolling dice and try and do more mortal wounds. But now it's just ×2 strength, -4 AP. And if you roll A hit, it automatically wounds, which is kind of cool. And if you roll a 6 to hit, it does 2 mortal wounds in addition to its normal damage, which is neat. It's interesting. I don't think it's the best choice. The heavy rock cutter is kind of neat. It's a -1 to hit for a strength ×2 -4 3 flat damage, so you get +1 damage over the rock saw, which is not -1 to hit. But of course, if you take the special cult creed that ignores to hit penalties for industrial weapons, you can ignore the -1 to hit, so you're hitting on normal. So that's definitely like something to consider. They can take a cult icon. They can take the leader can take a lash whip and bone sword. The bone sword now, of course, damage 2. The lash whip lets you reroll to hit rolls, which is kind of neat. They have conceal, unquestioning loyalty, and crossfire because they can still take hand flamers at 3 points a model. 3 points is kind of stiff to me, but it's not terrible. It's definitely like a cost that you might pay. It's a lot of shots if they have a lot of hand flamers. And then for every 5 models in the unit, 2 Acolyte hybrids can each have their auto pistol and cult claws and knife replaced with one of the following: 2 demolition charges, 1 heavy rock cutter, 1 heavy rock drill, 1 heavy rock saw. So you get 2 of those weapons per 5 dudes, and you can change around the cult leader's weapons. Pretty cool. Next, we have Neophyte hybrids. So we did a preview on these guys with Shadow Throne. Their stat line is virtually unchanged. One thing to note that's weird. And we can talk about points here a little bit. Neophyte hybrids in the list in the back are 1 to 15 as a total unit choice, and this says that they're 1 to 19. 10 to 19. I think that this is probably correct. I think you can probably have 20 dudes, but just based on the way their upgrades are worded and things like that. But that's kind of a misprint in the Codex, so we'll see if that's amended with an FAQ. Anyway, for every 10 guys, you can take 2 heavy stubborn mining lasers or seismic cannons, and for every 10 models, 2 guys can have flamers, grenade launchers, or webbers. You can give a power maul or power pick to the squad leader. Their core, they're 6 points a model. They're totally not bad. Next, we have the Pure Strain Genestealers. Man, these guys pack a punch for their points. So they're 5 to 10 total models. Their weapon skill 2+, strength and toughness 4, 1 wound, that's fine, 4 base attacks. So doesn't matter how many of them there are. They're always 4 attacks. They can still advance and charge. They get conceal and unquestioning loyalty. And now they have a 4 up invul. Note that these guys aren't core, so a bunch of the buffs don't work on them, but honestly, they don't really need very many buffs. 4 attacks per model just means that they get to attack a lot of times, and they hit really well. And instead of normal rending claws, they just have AP -3 close combat weapons, so they get sort of like power swords, but not +1 strength. So a really, really cool unit, really deadly. I'm very excited that you might see a Genestealer Cults army with freaking Genestealers in it. Who knew? Who knew that was a thing? Next, and they're elites choices. Next, we have hybrid metamorphs, and these guys are 1 to 14 or 1 to 15. Sorry, when I say 1 to 15, I mean 5 to 15. Because I can count, contrary to popular belief. These guys are like better acolytes. They get an extra attack, and their melee weapons are +1 strength, -3 AP, 1 damage. So they're all at least strength 5. Twisted Helix, they're strength 6, which is pretty good. And like all of they used to have like a Scything Talon did something different. The Claw did something different. Now that's not the case. They just they all have the same weapons, which is kind of cool. They can take a banner if you want to. The sergeant can take the normal weapons like you would see in the normal Acolyte squad since they're the same kit. And then they have Savage Amalgam, which basically means if they're destroyed by a melee attack, they get to fight. So they're like little wolfen. So don't charge these guys and expect not to take some damage back because they have so many attacks at strength 5, -3 AP that you're probably going to take some damage back, smashing them up in melee. But yeah, totally a good unit, and they can advance and charge. Next, we have Aberrants. Aberrants are They're different than they were before. I hesitate to say they're like better or worse. I think it's kind of a side grade. Well, I mean, they're probably more playable now than they were before. I would say that. Anyway, so they got +1 toughness for toughness 5. They're 3 wounds each, and they have 2 attacks. So low attacks, but man, their weapons are good. They consolidated the rock hammer and the power pick and rending claws into one profile, which is the heavy power weapon, which is +3 strength, -2 AP, 3 flat damage. So they all get that all the time. There's no penalty to hit. So they're hitting on 3s. They can do a ton of damage. The stop sign, so the heavy improvised weapon, is totally different. It's +1 strength, -1 AP, 2 damage, and it damage like spills over from models that you kill, which is fine. So it's kind of like the flail that you got with the Deathwing Knights, but it's like just not good. It's not as good. It's only -1 AP and +1 strength, so they're only strength 6. It's not strength 10 anymore. Like, it doesn't double your attacks. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. And they're still -1 damage. Note these guys are not core. Next we have the Abominant, who is also an elite's choice. He's pretty good. Weapon skill 3+, toughness, strength and toughness 5, 6 wounds, 3 attacks. So not a lot of attacks, but his hammer is damage D3 +3. So I mean, it hits hard. He also gets a couple of attacks from his familiar claws, the little dude that hangs out between his legs, his little buddy. And he has the chosen one, so aberrant units within 6 get to reroll to hit rolls. That's pretty cool. So if you're going to take some aberrants, maybe take an Abominant. That's not bad. He has a 5-up feel no pain all the time. He has bestial vigor, so he's -1 damage as well. So 6 wounds, -1 damage, 5-up feel no pain. He's a beast. He's hard to kill. And every time he's selected to fight, you can reroll to hit or to wound roll. So he can really make his attacks count. I think he's totally fine for his points. Yeah. Next, we have the Nexos. Some solid alliteration there. Defensively, the same as he ever was, which means he'll just die. He has battlefield analysis. In your command phase, if this model's on the battlefield, select one enemy unit on the battlefield, they get crossfired. Awesome. So you get +1 to hit against them for shooting. And then he has strategic coordination. In your command phase, select one friendly cult core unit on the battlefield, and then select one of the following friendly cult character models within 6 inches of them. So a Primus, a Jackal Alphys, a Clamavus. Until the start of your next command phase, that cult core unit is considered to be within range of that character model's aura abilities and can be selected for any of that cult character model's abilities that instruct you to select a friendly unit within a specified range, like priority target. So that's really cool. Just letting you put an aura like wherever you need, especially since Genestealer Cult are going to be like all over the table anyway. It's a really fantastic ability. Now, the Clamavus has definitely really changed. He used to be a model that would give you a bonus to your charge, and now he's just a big, fat sack of utility. So he has Conceal and Unquestioning Loyalty. He has the Proclamation Hailer. So this is a 12-inch range. You select a cult core unit within 12. Until the start of your next command phase, they can shoot and perform an action, and they don't take... they automatically pass combat attrition tests. So if you fail leadership, they're just going to lose one dude. He also has a Scrambler array, so no deep striking within 12 inches of him. And he has Voice of New Truths. In your morale phase, select one enemy unit within 12 inches and roll 3d6. If you roll greater than the enemy unit's leadership characteristic, select one of the following. They can't perform actions, and if they're currently doing an action, it fails. Or until the start of your next morale phase, they lose OBSEC. So a really cool way to kind of make your opponent lose OBSEC right as they're about to score, potentially. Now, there's not a lot of ways in this book that you can reduce enemy models' leadership, but rolling 3d6, average roll is like 10.5, so you're looking at like the bell curve is there. So if you have to roll like an 8 or a 9 to make sure that your opponent's unit like loses OBSEC and you claim an objective, I think that's pretty worthwhile. So next we have the Locust. So the Locust is like a character bodyguard. He's got 5 attacks, which is pretty cool, and he's pretty cheap. I think he's only 50 points. He's got the Locust Blades, which are +1 strength, -3 AP, 2 damage. So if you give him the Relic one, he's like strength 6, -3 AP, 2 damage that rerolls to hit and to wound with 5 attacks. Definitely not shabby. He's got a 5-up invul save, and he gets to pick a character that he bodyguards. So he's a character with bodyguard. So like you can do some weird stuff like stringing him out with characters so that you can't target. I don't know. You can't target him, but you can target the character. I don't know. He's cool. He's definitely cool. Also, you can't target that character with melee attacks if you could target both characters. So I think that's probably going to come up less often, and a savvy player is not going to let you do that, or he's going to put his models in such a way that it won't matter. Anyway, but he does have Strike First, and he has a 6-inch heroic intervention. So you got to watch out for him if you're going to try and fight an enemy character. He gets a lot of attacks. Then we have the Kellermorph. The Kellermorph is 2 up ballistic skill still. He's got 4 attacks. He has the Liberator auto stub is 18 inches, pistol 2, strength 5, -1. 1 flat damage, and he can target characters now, whereas before I don't think he could. I don't think he could ignore Lookout Sir. And if you roll a 6 to wound, you do a mortal wound in addition to normal damage. He has an ability called Gunslinger. Every time he makes an attack, if he hits, he gets another shot with the same profile. And then he has hypersensory abilities. So this is a really powerful ability. In your shooting phase, after this model shoots, it can make a normal move or fall back as if it were your movement phase, even if it arrived as reinforcements this turn. So being able to move after you do reinforcements is like an ability that I don't think any model in the game has right now. It was kind of something that they took out of the game before. And you can still assault after you do this. So he can shoot, move 6 inches, and then assault. So if you position him well, he can fire off a bunch of shots and then go tag a vehicle or something like that if he wants to. Also, after he can shoot in your opponent's shooting phase and then just like leave combat, or not in your opponent's shooting phase, but in your shooting phase, and then just like leave combat if he doesn't want to fight anymore, or if you feel like he's going to die. He still has the heroic deeds, a heroic inspiration, or if he destroys any enemy models in your shooting phase until the end of the phase. Cult core units within 6 can reroll to hits of 1, and he has a 5+ invulnerable save. Next, we have the Sanctus. The Sanctus is a lot different. He's very good. He's 70 points. The Kellermorph is 80 points. They're kind of different roles, but they're sort of comparable. They're both kind of character killers potentially, although hold on, I want to go back. I want to talk about the Kellermorph a little bit more. Sorry. I just realized that. So he's got the relic that he has, the pistol round. So they're strength 6, -3 AP, and 3 flat damage. Now they're heavy 1. So if he comes up, he's going to be -1 to, -1 to hit with those heavy weapons, unless of course that unit gets crossfired. In which case he won't be -1 to hit. He'll still hit on 2s. So they're strength 6, and if you can make them if you can make them exposed, like he's getting +1 to wounds, so he's wounding a lot of characters, a lot of really powerful, like anything that's less than toughness 5 on 2s as well, at -3 strength, at -3 AP, 3 flat damage, and he's probably going to get 5 or 6 hits with his shots. Probably 5 is like average, 4 or 5. But man, he does like that's so much damage, and at 3 flat damage, like any character that he targets that's going to have this is going to get destroyed. And you can line him up with like the 3-inch deep strike ability, so he pops up right behind a character. You can sniper him with like a Jackal Alphys or the Sanctus if you take both of these guys, which I think is totally reasonable. And he gets to pop shots off at them. Like any character, like a lot of characters in the game are pretty much dead with the combination of those two models. It's a very, very powerful ability. like there's a decent amount of command points and a decent amount of other abilities, but he's going to do work, and you're probably going to kill that character. The Sanctus, he's cool in that you can either equip him for combat or for shooting. He's got the cult. He can either have a cult sniper rifle or the Sanctus bio dagger. He gets to make all of his attacks with a bio dagger, which is 5 attacks. 3s to wound, do a mortal wound. He's got a 5+ invulnerable save, and he's -1 to hit. He also has Soul Sight, which is the little familiar that hangs out with him with the little goggles. Of course, if you remember seeing his model, which means he auto hits. He doesn't have to roll to hit. So his sniper rifle just auto hits, which automatically puts crossfire on that unit. Because when you give him the sniper rifle, he gets crossfire, and whenever he makes an attack against that unit, they automatically count as being exposed, so he gets +1 to wound against them as well. So he's auto hitting. He's wounding with strength 5 most characters on 3s or 2s. At -3 AP, 2 damage, or if you give him the relic one, it's 3 damage, and doing a mortal wound additionally on a 4+. And the cloaked assassin rules is kind of like the demolitions girl, where unless you're within 12 inches of him, you can't shoot at him. And he gets +1 to his cover saves. So I like the shooting version better than the combat version by a lot. I think he's a very good choice. He hits really hard, and he's a really good way to put crossfire if you're focusing on that part of the book. All right, then we have the Reductus Saboteur. She's assault. She's got a 2+ ballistic skill as well with her remote explosives. Strength 8, -3. It's blast. You can't target aircrafts with it because they're flying above her explosions, like some kind of an action movie. And then each time an attack is made by this weapon that's allocated to a vehicle or monster unit, that attack has a damage characteristic of 3. She also has all the other grenades that you can possibly want. She's got blasting charges and demo charges, and the remote explosives and frag grenades. So if there's a grenade available, she has it, and they're all in the model too, which is pretty cool. She doesn't have crossfire like the other 2 models previously mentioned, but man, those remote explosives are pretty good. And if you can get crossfire and exposed on those against a vehicle, I think that's pretty decent. She's got the plant explosives action, which they talked about on the GW article about her, and then at the end of your movement phase or the opponent's that just lets her place the marker. And then she has Clandestine, which is more or less the same as the rule for the Sanctus. So you can't target her unless they're within 12 inches with ranged attacks, and she's -1 to hit. So a good model to kind of camp out your backfield objectives. Totally a cool fluff model. Pretty good. Next, we have the Biophagus. The Biophagus is the dude who buffs your units with some special abilities. Yeah, he buffs your units with special abilities. His special abilities give your units more special abilities. He has the genomic enhancement. So he takes an action at the end of your movement phase, select a Biophagus model, and you get to pick a cult core aberrant unit within 3 inches of them that doesn't have a genomic enhancement. Once it's completed, you roll on the chart, or if they're an aberrant unit, you just get to pick whichever one you want. So the different abilities are you get +1 to your, or -1 AP to your close combat attacks. You get exploding 6s to hit and melee, or you get a 5+ feel no pain. So these abilities are all really good. Any of them are good for a whole unit to get this with the perfect planning upgrades that you can get. You can give, I don't know, like you can make like a 10-man unit of Adelan Jackals really durable with giving them a 5+ feel no pain in addition to their normal rules. You can also use the Cult Icon Ward then to bring back to like D3 of them, which can be the Wolf Quads. So if you want to just put the wounds on the 4-wound Wolf Quads, which have a 5+ feel no pain, they're like going to be super annoying to get rid of. Also, Adelan Jackals are -1 to hit. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that you can do with that. It's pretty powerful. He has an injector goad, which after you make attacks, if you actually did wounds to a character with the injector code, and they didn't die, if you roll a d6, and if you roll higher than their wounds characteristic, they just die. They're just dead. They're gone. And that's 3 attacks, weapon skill 3+, wounds, non-vehicle or titanic on a 2, otherwise it's strength 1, and it does D3 damage. He can also throw chemical vials, which are grenade 1, which also wound on a 2+ against non-vehicle or titanic. Note that, like Dark Eldar injector, like their injector stuff works on vehicles for some reason. I don't really understand it. But his stuff does definitely not work on vehicles, which makes total sense. Sorry, I had to get that little bitch in there. Anyway, so next we've got Adelan Jackals, and these guys are the bikers. These guys are great. They have like every good special rule. I think these guys are absolutely the stars of the book. They don't cost very many points. They're only 12 points a model. Man, they do a ton of work. So they are they're -1 to hit in melee and shooting. They can declare a charge and shoot when they fall back. If they make a ranged attack against an enemy unit within 6 inches, they count as being exposed. And they have scout, so if you don't cult ambush them, they get a free move up to 9 inches before the game starts as well. So you can block off a lot of space with these guys. They can take a bunch of different weapon upgrades. You can take a mining laser on the Wolf Quad. You can take an incinerator on it, or you can take the heavy stubber on it. All of them can take. Let's see here. So if you contain 4 more models, you can take 1 grenade launcher. If you let's see here. You can also give any number of them 1 demolition charge, which is a once per game strength 8 -3 2 flat damage grenade. Keep in mind, there's no way to throw extra grenades. You can never do that. Not in this book. And if you want to, you can give them all special close combat weapons, which are called Adelan power weapons, which are +1 strength -2 AP, and they do have 2 base attacks. So they can have a bunch of attacks too with power weapons. Their small arms are pistol 2, strength 4, no AP, 12-inch range. So they get a bunch of good like small shots too. Like so, it used to be like you could give them shotguns, you could give them all different kinds of weapons, but now they've kind of consolidated the profiles, so you don't have to roll like a million different like combinations of shots. Really, really good weapon, or really, really good unit. I definitely see a bunch of them in the future. Next, we've got the Achilles Ridge Runners. You know them. If you've played against them, you probably hate them. I know I do. Anyway, they have Scout as well. There's Toughness 6, 6 wounds. They have a 4+ armor save. Their weapons have changed a little bit. The missile launcher is now heavy 3, strength 6, -3 AP, 3 flat damage, which is pretty cool. And then also they can take the heavy mining laser, which has not changed. The heavy mortar is heavy D6, strength 6, -1 damage. I think that's the same. And then they've got a couple of heavy stubbers as well. Their war gear options, so they're 80 points a model. Their other war gear options, I think they're 80 points a model with the mining laser. I'll double check that in a minute. Their other weapon options or their other war gear options they're all free, so you can choose whichever one you want. I think the flare launcher is the best. It gives them a 6-up infil save, and they're -2 to charge. The spotter gives them a +12 inches to the range of their attacks, but you don't really need that. It's not really necessary. And then the survey auger lets them ignore cover as long as they're shooting at a unit within 24, which is not terrible, but it's not great. So they're very good. Also not core, which the Adelan Jackals are core. So that's definitely a powerful thing. Next, we have the only heavy support choice in the book. We have the Goliath Rock Grinder. So it's a transport capacity 6. Patriarch takes up 5 models, so this becomes like his personal chariot, I guess. This model changed a bit. Its movement is a little bit better. It has +1 toughness for toughness 7. It did lose a wound, but it also gained weapon skill 3, and it has a 3+ armor save now. It also, instead of like it having the 6-up feel no pain, it now has -1 damage, which is much, much better. It still can explode. You can give it a cache of demo charges, which means that the dudes inside can, you can only use them if dudes are inside of it, but it gives you demo charges from it every single turn. It can take a clearance incinerator, a heavy mining laser, or a heavy seismic cannon. The heavy seismic cannon is pretty good. It's either heavy 6, strength 6, -2, 2 flat damage, or heavy 3, strength 8, -3, 3 flat damage. So definitely got some options there. The drill dozer blade is not damage. Like its damage is more uniform. It's +2 strength, -2 AP, 2 flat damage, and it gets to make 2 extra attacks. So full profile, this thing has 8 attacks at weapon scale 3, strength 8, or strength 9 if it's Twisted Helix, at -2 AP, 2 damage. So that's a lot of attacks. That'll do work. That'll do, pig. Anyway, really cool model, pretty inexpensive and well worth the points. And then finally we have the Goliath truck. This got a similar treatment. It's not toughness 7, it's only toughness 6, but it did get the 3+ save that the Rock Grinder got. It can still take the cache of demo charges. It has 1 twin autocannon and a heavy stubber. And it has open tops so the guys in the back can shoot, and has a transport capacity of 10. Again, the Patriarch takes up 5 models. What are the the weapons? So there's industrial weapons. So check those out. Those are the weapons that are affected by the different buffs.
Hello, yes. Industrial weapons are the Adeline Incinerator, Adeline Power Weapon, Blasting Charges, Cache of Demolition Charges, Clearance Incinerator, Demolition Charge, Drill Dozer Blade, Heavy Mining Laser, Heavy Power Weapon, Heavy Rock Cutter, Heavy Rock Drill, Heavy Rock Saw, Heavy Seismic Cannon, Mining Laser, Power Pick, Power Sledgehammer, Seismic Cannon.
Nice. So you definitely have a lot of options there for your industrial weapons, and like the buffs that those get are pretty substantial, and almost all of the good shooting weapons and all of the good melee weapons are of that variety. I think that's very powerful. Thank you, John. All right, so let's look at points. So we've got the Acolyte Icon Ward at 75, Jackal Alphys at 80, Magus at 80 with Familiar for 10, Patriarch at 140, Primus at 80. You've got your Acolyte Hybrids at 9 points a model. Cult Icon is a whopping 20 points. You can see 5 to 15 models for those Acolyte Hybrids at 9 points a model. Hand Flamers are a princely 3 points a model. I still think that's probably worth it in a lot of cases. You've got their special close combat weapons are all 10. Neophyte Hybrids, as you would expect. I'm not sure why a bolt pistol costs +2 points. Like, that seems a little ridiculous. But you can see their other weapons there. Mining Laser is 15. Seismic Cannon's also 15. The Weber is 10 points, which is pretty pricey, over the normal Flamer, which is 5. Aberrants are 30. Abomin is 95 points. That is expensive for what he is. The Biophagist is only 40 points. If you give him that upgrade, the Alchemist Supreme, it's plus 15 points, which makes him 55 points. Like, that's a gimme almost every single game. Clamavis is 50 points. I think he's probably worth his points too. If you want to try and mess with your opponent's ability to score, I don't think it's like the bleeding edge competitive there, but he's definitely, like, I think it's not the best option, but it is an option. You've got the Hybrid Metamorphs at 12 points a model. So for 3 extra points a model over hybrids, you get +1 attack, +1 strength, -1 AP. So they become much better in melee. They can also take those Hand Flamers. Kellermorph's 80, Locust is 50, Nexus is 50, Pure Strengths are 14, which is an excellent value. Reductus Saboteur is 80, Sanctus is 70. Achilles Bridge Runners have no points changed for different options. They're always 80 points all the time. That's what I thought. So take away those mining lasers. That's definitely your best option, I think. Adelan Jackals are 12. Their power weapons are 3 points each. Demo charges and grenade launchers are also 5. The Wolf Quad is 24, so it's basically the cost of 2 of them stapled together, which is what it basically is. Its mining laser is 15 points, or the incinerator is 10, or you can take heavy stubbers and they're free. The Grok Grinder is 110, which is a steal for its points. And the Goliath truck is 90 points total for that. You can see here we also have the Proficient planning as well. Overall, a really great book, a ton of deep options. I think this book has got an insanely high skill cap. I think it's one of those armies that's going to reward a player who's very, very good at the game. But man, the stuff hits like a freight train. It does a bunch of damage. It's pretty fast, but it's fast, but it's not. It kind of moves unconventionally, like you would expect this army to. I think there's a bunch of options in here that are extremely efficient at killing characters, so that like kind of asymmetrical warfare aspect that you would think of as kind of a cult uprising works pretty well for these guys. So definitely check out Codex Genestealer Cults when you have a chance. If you enjoyed our review, please like and subscribe to our channel. Mob Rules, we appreciate it. If you liked it an extra amount, you can check us out. Our podcast premieres every 2 weeks. It'll take up probably an hour or 2 of your time, and we just kind of talk about what we're doing in the hobby, what's going on. We play some stupid games sometimes. We have fun. We do these book reviews. Come on, check it out. You can also check out John and I on Grim After Dark every Monday on the Frontline Gaming Network, where we banter and also interview guests. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.